Well, first of all, thank you for being here, Toby. And I think the audience would like to understand what is your profession, and as a fashion business consultant and also as an international best-selling author. But how would you describe your profession, first of all?
I think it's the question my wife always asks me, what is it you actually do?
Right.
And that's one of the beauties of kind of working for yourself. Sometimes, that role kind of develops and changes. But I call myself a fashion business consultant, but I kind of sit somewhere between the pure financials and the creative. I'm not a designer.
Yeah.
I would never claim to be a designer. I'm certainly not a pure business person.
Right.
But I kind of sit between the two, helping labels to develop and make sure that they're spending money in the right places and getting the most potential for the money they are investing.
So what's the UK fashion industry landscape look right now? I mean, from a business perspective rather than,
It's an interesting landscape. It's a changing landscape with social media, e-commerce. We're getting opportunities for young designers that weren't there before because we're a bit like here, we're a saturated market with big global brands, which means it's difficult for young labels to find the space within the high street, the malls, to actually position themselves. Well, e-commerce and social media just cuts all of that out. It empowers the designers. It allows them to have a relationship with consumers in Jakarta, Indonesia, and wherever. And those labels that are embracing that medium are the ones that are going to be the labels of the future.
Well, in relation to that, I'd like to know from your point of view, then why is it becoming more important to look to the East now, more so than before, from a business perspective rather than an inspiration perspective?
Yeah.
Because I think it's, like you said, the landscape has changed. It's also because the world's changed. Like right now it's almost like upside down a little bit. So it's turning
completely. So. My actual background in studying was kind of history and sociology at university, and my kind of thing is about looking at the global world and and how commerce is shifting and changing, and I use that as a consultant. But I would say over the past 12 months, I've traveled more than I've probably ever traveled, and to areas like Indonesia, Middle East, and Northern Africa, and then working with Chinese brands, Singaporean as well, and it's just really rammed home that this is where it's at. I mean, it's a very simple reason. It's where the money is.
Exactly.
And if the money's here, and you have a global kind of outlook as a business, well, you just shift to where the money is. Well, when you shift to where the money is, the consumer has a different taste. They have a different need and expectation. And as a good business, you start to adjust your product accordingly. So you're starting to see high-end labels, brands that are starting to kind of offer start to develop an offer that is much more focused towards this market. And it's simply that the consumer and the spending power is far greater. But also, I think the desire that suddenly, the desire we're seeing luxury being introduced to markets like this, and especially China, on a speed and scale that has never been seen before. It is mass luxury. It's losing its exclusiveness. And with that comes an opportunity for the next generation, because as everyone has a Birkin bag or a Louis Vuitton bag, where is the added value in being the only one? So you then start to look and say, well, I want to be different. And I want difference, I want a bit of uniqueness, but I want somebody maybe who knows what I want and is not just selling me what they've got. And that's where I think the opportunity exists in the next 5-10 years for some of the Indonesian designers. They know their market, they understand their customer, they also understand and look to Western designers, so they are bringing that influence in. And that kind of amalgamation is going to be where the next generation of super designers is coming from.
So with that said, I think the audience would like to know, where is Indonesia in that whole picture, especially after your second time being here. I'm sure you've gained a considerable amount of knowledge about what's going on in the industry here. So what's your take on that?
The optimist in me says that you're in the epicenter. You're well positioned within the region to access quite quickly where things are moving. I think the greatest challenge is that over the past 10-15 years you've imported a very professional and mature offer from Western markets. So you go into the malls and it's as good as anywhere in the world, but the actual consumer hasn't gradually been educated, it's just been given to them. As a result, the designers are kind of working, a lot of them as a couture or that kind of sense at the top end, a bit like the Western world in the 50s, prior to the 60s, where ready-to-wear was introduced. But it's as if we've suddenly gone, you were working in the 50s and now 30 years, 40 years on, here you go, and they're trying to play catch-up. So at the top end, I think there is a need to evolve the working practice to kind of challenge some of those more established brands, working to a kind of maybe a bigger season or quicker season model, upping the added value of buying their product. But there's no doubt the talent pool is there, and that's the thing. If when you come over as a consultant and you're here to help and develop people's businesses, the one thing you don't want to see is a lack of talent, because I can't give you that. I work with the talent and help shape it, and we're seeing the talent, which is fantastic, and we're also seeing the enthusiasm, the desire. So that's at the top end. But I think what is also happening, which is incredibly exciting, is at the kind of more entry level kind of, I want to say high street, but maybe kind of premium kind of level, that you've got designers who are recognizing that actually there's a massive consumer base who, if I keep my pricing accessible, that I'm going to make some serious cash. We're going to look at kind of competing with the Forever 21s and the Topshops in the long run. Now, it takes a lot of investment, it takes development of your product and your brand, but you're seeing the types of labels that, fast forward 5 to 10 years, I would expect to have a number of standalone stores, and that those standalone stores could then be franchised anywhere in the region, if not in the world. So I'm a big kind of dreamer and an optimist. But when I left the first time and I went back to London, I was saying to anyone that would listen, you've got to be in Indonesia, right? There's a positive outlook. There's a fantastic infrastructure, there's an awful lot of talent, there's a lot of investment, but also, while I've been here, I've been meeting with the trade ministries, and there's a desire at government level to invest and to generate. So every piece of the jigsaw is in place. And one of the reasons I'm here is to try and help to shape, to make sure that the direction that is taken is going to be the most cost effective and the most direct in making all of that grow over the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Actually, we are feeling kind of like questions, whether the things that we're doing is going to the right directions. Like I think some of the comments that came from the workshop that you did, whether we're selling ourselves a bit low. I mean, I'm not talking about pricing, but more on like even branding. Combination of branding and pricing. What's your take on that?
In any emerging market, you see the same problem. Okay, you have a consumer that doesn't have yet the trust in its own country's ability to create something as desirable as the imported goods, right? From an outsider, I'm telling you right now, like for like, the capability is equal, but they need to refine, okay? And it's not, all these brands we're working with, it's not their right that the consumer has to buy their product. They have to earn that trust, they have to work with their needs, and they have to educate the market. And that's where forums like this hopefully are part and parcel of educating both the consumer and the designers that work together, and things will be good. But without a doubt, if a lot of these brands are trying to introduce themselves regionally and then internationally, they've got to see themselves and market themselves in the same category as the international competition. We've got designers here that are selling themselves at 1/10 the price of a brand that is more established. But I have emerging designers in the UK that haven't been going as long as some of your designers, aren't even turning over as much as your designers, but they're positioning themselves in the right place. you just got to think that if I bring a Lane Crawford buyer over here, you know, she has a bracket. She knows her buyer's going to walk in, love a product, and if the price is too cheap, they're going to think something's wrong with it.
Well, do you think it's a geographical problem though? Coming from an Indonesian brand.
I think the market here may not be quite ready to pay the prices that, you know, for that, but then we have to educate the market, you know, because the amount of work these designers are putting in is no less than the brands that are being sold over here. In fact, they're probably working harder, you know, than some of those. But I'm more interested in how they're going to position themselves internationally, because they can get away with at the moment locally offering a more accessible product, and if anything, that's going to increase tourism to kind of Indonesia, because you'll be the place to get the brand at the lowest cost. But they cannot take it internationally and introduce themselves to an international audience at the 10th of a price of a like-for-like brand.
Well, this is it's been very insightful. I mean, I think your visits, the 2 visits that you've done here, I'm pretty sure it has given a lot to you know, the industry here, especially the young designers. But I think if there's anything you would like to say to the audience as a closing for word of encouragement.
Yeah, well, you know what? I usually say the same things for everybody, and it's what every young designer doesn't want to hear. And that is, don't be in a hurry, right? It's building a brand, building a recognizable label takes time. That doesn't mean if the market opportunity is there that you shouldn't, you know, hit that. But it's not a case of just being able to throw money at it and it's going to work. You have to learn the processes. You have to make sure your business infrastructure is in place. You've got to make sure, if you're going especially international, that your sizing, you know, is right, that the quality is going to be good, that you can actually deliver what it is you're promising the buyer, and that means delivering on time, within price, and good quality. So I'm always say, kind of, it's great to get international recognition, it's great to do all of this, but if the business isn't there, it's damaging in the long run. So first of all, it's kind of take the time. 2, it's about maintaining the love of what it is you're doing. There's an old Moschino ad which says from the late 90s, fashion without passion is any other business. And that is a reality. It is a business, right? If you lose the passion, you're just running a very complicated, difficult business. So I need you to stay in love with what it is you're doing and find, even through the dark times, those things that are going to make you happy and excited. But ultimately, if you believe in what you're doing and this is what you think you should be doing, you've got to believe that it's going to work, and you've just got to be resilient, and you've got to keep going and going and going.